I'm Vic Cohen, and it's a fair question. It's a fair question. It's a fair question. I'm Vic Cohen, and it's a fair question. It's a fair question. I'm Vic Cohen, and it's a fair question. Hello, and welcome to Vic Cohen's It's a Fair Question. You are listening to us live from beautiful, it is really beautiful down here. It's stunning. Los Angeles' Skidrow Studios. And the reason I call the show It's a Fair Question is because, well, on this show, there is absolutely no question that is ever off limits or ever too personal. Any question is a fair question.
That's unfair.
I'm warning you now, guest. Tonight, I have a very good friend and a very funny guy as our guest.
Yeah, thanks.
This man, and he is a man.
Yeah.
He's done stand-up on Letterman. He he's worked with Steve Martin, Woody Allen, Vic Cohen. True.
All true.
All true.
I did stand-up with Steve Allen.
Steve Allen?
Actually, I did Steve Allen.
Wow.
No, I did stand-up with... You want to hear a little quick...
Not yet. Please, let me give you the introduction you deserve.
Okay.
Then we get to you.
If I got the introduction I deserve, I wouldn't need the love from the audience.
Okay, that's probably true. You wouldn't have chosen this.
Been here. Yes.
That's right. That's a good point. Also, I had the pleasure, and it was a pleasure, to work with Steve in Reno, Nevada, about 2 or 3 years ago. At what was it? Was it Catch a Rising Star?
Stripper's name, Reno, Nevada, right?
Yeah, I actually went out with her.
Yes.
All right. I had a joke that I don't want to say because it's too dirty. I'm talking about Steve Middleman. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Vic.
Yes.
So nice to be here. I'm kind of dyslexic. I think I'm in the Bowery right now.
No.
Oh, it's Skid Row. We're on the West Coast.
That's correct. And you know what I love is Steve said to me 2 minutes before we were about to go on, he said, I'm going to fart. And we're in the tightest studio.
You know, it's supposed to be a fair question, not quoting statements.
Did you fart?
I don't think I did. No.
No, you held it in?
I used a Twizzler.
Oh. Okay, I'm not sure how you used it, but
no, I said I want to be.
You stuck it up your ass,
clean for corporate gigs.
Oh, that's right. Okay, speaking of which,
they turn the air off. It's very hot in here.
Yes, it is. If you need to take your shirt off, by all means, or pants, whatever you need.
By the way, I'm wearing underneath. If I take off my shirt, I'm wearing. Sadly, the name would be Wife Beater or Guinea Tea.
Yeah.
Is there a nice name for this T-shirt?
No, it isn't. Why are you even wearing that?
Because I was in all day like a comedian. I took a nice nap from like 4 to 6:15
p.m. Yeah.
And I woke up and I didn't know what it was like outside. I don't even.
But who wears those things? It was not on cops. Like, I mean.
I know.
Like, and it doesn't protect your underarm from like stains.
I wear one over my shirt and one under my shirt. I get cold.
It's a nice look.
I'm cold-blooded.
Okay.
I don't look it, but I get cold-blooded.
If you need to take anything off, including that, feel free. Okay. And, you know, sometimes the conversations before the show, I try not to talk to the guests because you want to save it for the show. But you were telling me, I just want to go right into this because it's so crazy.
Yes.
You know, I'm a single guy. You're in a relationship right now.
Yes.
Lovely lady. You were saying that you knew of a single woman who, tell me what you told me earlier, just a few minutes ago, right before, again, we went on.
A friend of my sister's. I can't even, she's so nameless, I shouldn't have said she was a friend of my sister's.
No, we'll cut that out. We'll edit that out.
Her plumbing was so bad.
Her plumbing was so bad, the friend?
Her girl parts?
Yeah.
That she actually, number 2 comes out where number 1 is.
Oh, that's horrible. Jeremy, did you hear that?
What? Is that a way to start? That's a way to start a show.
Jeremy is out there in the single world.
I mentioned the Twizzler joke, and I tell you this.
Steve his sister has a friend who,
she
goes number 2 out of Regina.
Out of Regina, Canada?
Yeah, I went down on her and got shit-faced.
Wow. I mean, you had me tell that whole thing just for that setup for that line.
But I can't. I do think I dated her. I do. Is she on J-Date?
She lives in another part of the world.
But this is true? I've never heard of such a thing.
She She volunteered. I did never ask. I said, hey, where are you shitting from nowadays?
You're shitting me.
Yes.
That is so disgusting. All right, well, let's get this show back on track.
Anything is back on track after that.
Absolutely, for sure. That's true. Now, your credits are crazy. I mean, the amount of work you've done is crazy. Insane.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes. You know what you haven't seen? I've done like 50 commercials.
Yeah.
50?
50.
50. That's a lot.
Right. But were there any that were like Ronald McDonald where you could live on forever? Like the money was so good?
You know something? I did very well from commercials. I'm vested. I have a pension. I know I did a few movies and sitcom appearances, but I'm sure a chunk of that pension is because of commercials.
Do you consider yourself
lucky?
No. I know the answer to that. No. Do you consider yourself more of a stand-up comic or an actor?
More of a stand-up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love stand-up, and I still love it 37 years now. It just added 10 years as I was saying that. But, yeah, stand-up by far. Love it.
Have you always known you wanted to do stand-up?
In my teens, I wanted to be in radio. That's why I'm at home here in Skidrow.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
I mean, for that
Top 40. You say it, we played all the hits all the time.
I'm going to throw up.
Anyway,
but you do
Top
it well.
40. I love that guy. Hey, that was me.
Did you ever do radio?
I did it in school. And our school radio station, Brockport, upstate New York, the signal was so weak we couldn't even hear ourselves.
Is that true?
Yes, it was that bad.
I've been on station like
Yeah,
that.
I know. So I loved it, and then I lost my show on the school radio station. It was my major.
And this was just 10 years ago.
Yes.
He's a very 30 years, 20 years senior or whatever.
No, the school, Malcolm Lowry, I hate him, the bastard. He was the GM in the school radio station, and he was a student. And he gave my show to a friend of his who was coming back to school, who had already been a professional DJ on Long Island.
Oh, okay. That's the competition.
So I said, why does he need it? I'm the guy that's never done it. I transferred here to do this. And and there was a big to do, and I brought up a stink, and he could have been voted out, but everybody was afraid to vote against the GM because then they'd lose their shows. Mm-hmm. So I lost my show, and I went, screw it. I love comedy. I'm doing comedy. That's what happened.
Now, you've done over 90 TV stand-up appearances.
At least, yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot of TV.
I know. You know the nicest feeling I get? Not from you.
Good. I'm not trying. No,
yeah.
I want to give you good feelings.
Thank you. But the nicest thing, sometimes, out of all the comedians out there, all of them, somebody will come up to me and go, who the hell do you think you are? No. They come up to me and they say, you're my favorite comedian. It's the greatest feeling.
You still get that? From people who knew you. I mean, not to
go, oh my God, Steve Middleman.
Because there was a point in your career where you were there weren't that many outlets for comics, and you were right in the middle of it.
When I started, there were maybe two places in the Rainy Night House in Queens, which coincidentally was about a block or two from where I grew up, and Mustache Pete's in Jersey. They were the first two gigs, and they were so god-awful, but there were no other gigs, and you went, it was a big deal.
How old were you?
I started when I was 21, literally. December 16th, 1976. The summer before I auditioned a little bit, I got passed in the clubs, but I was going back to school, University of Buffalo. I transferred from Brockport to Buffalo. And believe it or not, I studied Tolstoy. That's how liberal University of Buffalo was. I had a Tolstoy major.
That was your major?
Yeah, my dad had a stroke.
When he saw that was your major?
Yes. And I never forgave myself. And Social Security.
Did he really have a stroke?
Yes. Social Security said, if you have 12 credits, register. I was going to quit school. They said, if you have 12 credits, you'll get like $160, $180 a month because you're a dependent of somebody who's disabled.
Okay.
So I said to the people at University of Buffalo, where I was a Tolstoy major, I said, well, is there any way I could do 12 credits on the road and I'm in New York. I'm going to doing stand-up comedy. And they said, we'll tell you what, that a professor, okay it. They said, you'll do 12 credits of writing your stand-up. You'll mail it to us. You'll tell us how it's going, and we'll grade your stand-up.
That's
writing.
Great.
And for that, I had 9 months of a comedy grant from our government.
That's fantastic.
And that got me going. I stayed with my sister, moved in with her boyfriend. I basically had her apartment, which was walking distance from Catch and the comic strip in New York. And then I had a roommate. I got a studio apartment, and I split a studio with various performers. It was $225 a month. I couldn't afford that.
Who are you living with? Anyone we know now?
Well, a guy who became kind of very well known in a rock world. He's Pat Benatar started a Catch. Brilliant voice, but she did all these torchy songs.
He was doing stand-up?
No, they would sing. They have singers every few acts.
Oh, okay.
Singer. And you're a great singer at Catch if people didn't talk during the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody would stop and go crazy. So her bass player, Roger Capps, he was my roommate for a while. This comedian, Andy, I'm blanking on his name, reminds me of George Costanza. He was my roommate for a while. And I just split this studio. It's crazy.
Now, do you remember your very first joke that you felt was really great that the audience responded to?
Yes. My first time on stage, I killed. Because I did it. It was a speech class. And it was oral interp, and it was potluck, whatever you want. And it was a final project. And by then, everybody knew me and liked me in my class. And I just killed. I did 5 minutes, and I killed because they were so nice. But then one time I did the Rathskeller. That was I don't know.
The what?
The Rathskeller, the school bar.
Okay.
Upstate, in Brockport again. And I bombed for 4 minutes. And then the 5th minute, I did a Nixon routine. And I killed. But that 4 minutes, I could still remember how terrifying that was.
Didn't stop you.
Didn't stop me. I had to finish, and I did the Richard Nixon routine. And I'm dreaming of a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, with no kikes or kooks or guineas, no Niger spikes or Mickeys, just pat the girls and baby rebozo. It's my party, and if I cry if I want to. Anyway, there's
it's just crazy. It's so wild. It's like the fact that you even were in front of an audience where that would be current. I mean, it's a long.
That was 1970.
It's amazing.
Or something, or early 76.
Yeah.
And this is not far after Watergate, and we were hippies in the mid-70s even.
So a couple things I just want to follow up on.
Yeah.
We were talking about commercials, and I want to backtrack for just a moment. What's the most you ever made on a commercial? And that is a fair question.
God.
100 grand?
I bet you 30, 40, not as much as you think.
But those were back then. This isn't recently, right?
No, after we had this big strike about 12 years ago, and it was 15 years ago, something like that.
Right.
And
I remember.
Yeah, it wasn't great. We ended up, after months.
The strike actually hurt actors, and it's never recovered.
Never recovered.
Because what happened was the actors for commercial actors wanted more money, and the producers or the other side of the table said no. And they discovered these other people, these producers, that they could use non-union workers and pay them even less.
Not just that. What they did is they farmed out a lot of the production out of state. They taped out of state or out of city. And they also they developed a way to bulk pay you, where you used to get per airing, you'd get a residual benefit. And then now you got from 1 to 5 viewings, 5 to 10 viewings. It was diminishing returns. They had all these months to figure out how can we screw the actors.
So bottom line is that this was before all that, when the money was better. Is that what you're saying?
think it was better at one time.
Okay, but the most you made was maybe 30 or 40 grand.
Probably out of commercial.
For one day of work?
SOS. Yeah, sure. I did it. Name a product, I probably did. I did 4 of them for Federal Express, which was great. And that's kind of what launched me. My first audition, I was so bad. It was like some fancy advertising agency in New York. And I was so bad, the talent person looked at me and said, "Is this your first audition?" And it was like, oh my God. So, and then I landed my second one.
Wow.
And the guy loved me. It was Joe Settlemeyer and Patrick Kelly.
Chicago?
Patrick Kelly, they were doing New York. Patrick Kelly went to New York. And he copied Joe Settlemeyer's style. And he booked me like 7 times.
And because Steve has a unusual look, and back particularly then, it was even more unusual. So you were very charactery, even more
couldn't
so.
help it. I used to, once in a while in my life, like, should I go into stand-up or not? There were a few times in my life where people literally pointed at me and started laughing without my saying it. We're just in public, not on stage.
Well, let's get right to this.
It's what a life.
Well, here's the deal.
And that was the maternity ward nurse.
Okay. I have, just to give you a sense of Steve and his comedy, why don't we play a little clip? Can we go to that first clip, please, Jeremy? And this is, before you roll it, Jeremy, just 1 second, I just want to set this up, that this is from a show that you say, Steve, turned your whole career around.
Oh, it launched me.
And can you set that up as to where this was and why it was so important to you?
It was at the Copa, where Scorsese
no, seriously.
videotaped taped from Goodfellas.
Is this true?
Yeah, that's the club, the Copacabana in the Midtown Manhattan. Just big time.
Their cameras were there? Showtime?
Well, Showtime, yeah. It was this big laugh-off. I auditioned.
What's the big laugh-off? What does that mean?
It was a big competition among nationwide comedians.
It was televised?
Each city, yeah. And it was on a million times on Showtime. And it was, I didn't get it. It tells you being persistent. I didn't even get through the auditions, and something happened where I was able to sneak into another audition. And after being rejected once, I got accepted, and then I kept making the cut and making the cut. Then I got to the finals, and that was the TV show.
And you won.
And I won. On that show was Eddie Murphy, Mark Schiff, Carol Leifer, Rick Overton, and myself. I closed, I killed, and from there it launched me.
And Rick Overton, we've had as a guest on the show.
He's a great guy.
Wonderful. For those of you who want to hear that interview with Rick, it's Rick Overton. I don't remember what episode it is, but it's right in the iTunes library there. So this is from that set, that comedy set. It was about a 10 or 12 minute set.
You're not
going
to play the whole clip.
We're going to play part of it. It's a very short part. Let's go with that first clip.
I had sex this year. No, only kidding. I paid the guy. You notice some people sex is everything? To me, sex is anything. Most guys think about having sex with 2 girls at once. For me, it's 1 girl, twice.
So listening to that, you kind of come across as the lovable loser.
Yeah, self-deprecating.
Is that your style today?
No, I have no style today.
Honestly?
Obviously. I opened up with a Twizzler joke, and they think about my girlfriend's, my sister's girlfriend.
But as far as your persona on stage today, are you
basically I'm myself, just sort of how we are right now. I'm just me.
Okay. Were you then?
I was, because I probably related to the self-deprecating. I felt that way about myself.
Do you still feel that way about yourself?
Doctor, that's all the time we have.
No, now you're avoiding me. Is that uncomfortable to talk about?
No, I don't feel that way about myself. No, I feel like I am God. That's a big turnaround. That's a 180.
How do you really feel, honestly?
I'm God.
I don't believe that.
That I'm God?
I think that and it's okay that you're kind of not wanting to go there.
No. I don't feel that way about myself today. I don't like doing, once in a while it's fun. I think life is, if I have a sense of humor about myself, I find the irony in the world and in my world. And I don't think that was a bulk of me and how I viewed the world back then. And I don't feel that way about myself today.
And how did you feel about yourself back then?
Oh, This
is 1981. You're 22, 20. I don't know. You're in your 20s.
1981, I was 25. Well, I was 25. It was 1980. Yeah.
Okay. Who were you then in your head?
I was very kind of naive about the world. I was very remarkably shy for somebody on stage. I hardly had a girlfriend till I don't think I maybe kissed a girl till I was 20, 21. I never got any of the emotional vitamins anybody would ever need from zero to the second I stood on stage. Nothing. Very little love. Screaming, maniacal parents. I always describe my parents. Remember the Waltons? We were the anti-Waltons. There was screaming. There was beatings. There were yelling to the point where you break down and cry. And over and over and over again. I was broken. It was like, what do they call that when you post-war traumatic?
PTSD?
Yes.
Do you still have it?
No, I don't think so.
How'd you get through it?
Lots of therapy. A humongous amount of therapy.
Do you think that perhaps, for a stand-up comic, the life is tough? It really is.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, just go along with me on this for a moment. I would say there are challenges at times for a comic that aren't easy. Now, you may disagree, and that's why you do it. For you, I've talked to other comics who have a different feeling, and that's okay.
Yeah.
My premise is, I'll just get to the headline, is that I think when you have such a tough life as a child, your tolerance to pain is so high that what others would consider to be painful, you don't necessarily.
That's a nice point.
Because you're so used to it. And actually, it's less painful than what you went through as a child. So in comparison, it's actually peaceful.
Yeah, I have a lot more peace in my life now. For a long time.
Who was doing the beating?
Mom physically, dad verbally. And my brother and sister, we all get along great. I'm so lucky.
What were reasons that you would be getting? What would be something your dad would say? Like, are there things that go through your head still? His voice?
I remember him yelling that I was stupid and slamming the door. I don't remember because I was basically a good kid. I don't think I was if I showed up late for a meal, I'm sure parents, maybe get nervous or something. I don't know, but I can't think of much else. I don't think what mischief I did back then. They were like, my mom was Mo, In
the Three Stooges.
Yeah. My mom was Mo without the humor. My parents together basically were the Costanzas without the humor. Although my dad was very funny. I got my sense of humor from my dad. And my family, we could laugh. The other side of it is comedy tragedy. There was a lot of laughs too.
So it is like I feel like laughter is love.
Yes.
In my life.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I think as a child, I certainly didn't have that kind of tumultuous situation that you're describing.
Yeah.
I will say that the greatest moments, though, of love were through laughter.
Yeah, I think it was the most. I think bonding. I think I don't remember getting a hug till I was in therapy, and at the end of the first session, Alan Lefkowitz, the shrink, hugged me. And I was like, it brought up such an avalanche of pain because I went, oh my God, that's a hug. I didn't know what it was.
And how old were you?
I was 40. No, I was 20, probably 22, 23 maybe. Yeah. So it was a domino effect. I forget who was first, either who went to Alan Lefkowitz. Either Zweibel went first, or maybe Richard Lewis, who told Larry David, who told John DeBellis, who told me.
The same therapist.
He's had about 150, 200 comics in the last. We're still friends.
What's his name?
Alan Lefkowitz. He's in New York.
And he's still doing
Upper West Side. Yeah, great guy, wonderful.
And that's really funny.
Yeah. He's had a million comics, not just comics, but he's.
Now, how does it feel? I'm just curious. Like, you've got But wait, before I move forward, though, I do want to kind of wrap this part up. The sense of serenity that you have as a man.
I do.
In life, further along in life.
Pretty much, yeah.
How do you deal with the voices? Have they left, or what tools have you learned to handle that?
And I think diminishing life perspective, choosing to have a nice, easier attitude about life, knowing you won't get the hug from the audience. You don't need it anymore. You got to give it to yourself.
Is that why you got in stand-up, for a hug?
Yes. How quick was that answer? That's a fair question.
It is
After
a fair
everything
question.
I just said. Yeah, I'm sure I went for the love. I loved it. It was addicting. It's still addictive. Still love stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
Still love it.
What is it you love about it?
Well, right now it's to say something clever or write something clever, and bingo, you get an immediate feedback. Usually, as long as you're writing it and you're getting on stage soon after that.
How do you deal with rejection even today? Let's say
Next.
Have you ever bombed?
Next.
Bombing's subjective, anyways.
See, I'll tell you. No, it's not.
You don't think so?
No, if everybody else can smell it, you bombed. Pretty much.
So how do you handle that?
Next, I'll tell you why. Because it's like an actor who gets an audition, and they haven't auditioned in a while, and they put everything into this audition. There's every word, every nuance. Well, God bless them for preparation like that. And then they do it, and they leave, and they go beat themselves up like, oh, I didn't get it. I didn't nail it. Oh my God, I didn't get it. And everything is on that moment in that audition. Everything. Because they're not doing it much. They're just having that one audition a month or every other month.
Such a great point.
Everything's played up.
You are so right.
So if you audition, if you're performing all the time, even a number of times a month, and you've done this enough, I've done thousands of shows, I can't go and look at, it's like a little flake of snow with a million other flakes coming
But conversely, though, Steve, if you can write that off as whatever, next, when you do kill, shouldn't there also be a sense of kind of like next? Because if we live too much in the high of the success, isn't it setting us up for when things don't go the way we'd like, is to be a bigger fall, a bigger disappointment?
Well, you want to celebrate the highs. You want to learn from the lows, so you can learn from each. Is a comic can get on stage, kill, and go, oh, I could have put that there. Oh, I could invert it. Sometimes your setup is your punchline, and your punchline is your setup. You go, oh, I could have switched that. I mean, I read it all the time on Facebook. Somebody I said, oh man, they put an extra word here and there. It's such a touchy little.
Are you a wordsmith?
I try. I don't have a brilliant vocabulary.
When I say wordsmith, I'm not thinking about necessarily vocabulary. I'm talking about placement of every word.
There's less or more. Less is more is true for most.
I did.
Not for all.
Okay. I know. Rules in comedy are tough because there always can be examples of where that rule doesn't apply. I did some writing for Joan Rivers for her stand-up act. And to do that, I studied her stand-up. I would transcribe her act. You talk about a person who uses so few words. If you would ever transcribe it, it's incredible. Yeah,
it concises for that type of one-line person. Concise. How you can't be concise.
Yeah.
We were doing this. Brevity is the soul of somebody.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. That was Brogan put that on Facebook today.
Yeah,
it was funny.
Somebody else.
Tell everyone what we're talking about. Do you remember?
Well, this drunk woman comes over to him after the show and says something like, "Well,
it's true what they say.
It's truly what they say that there's the fewer the words, the quicker, the better it is for the punchline, and that's the soul of wit."
Right.
And he goes, yeah, you mean brevity is the soul of wit?
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's what yeah. Anyway, but Stu Triveks had the greatest 2-letter punchline you could ever imagine. And he had my old character that you were playing.
Yes.
I went from that complete self-deprecating guy our friend Tom Stern's advice years ago. He said, well, you're playing the loser. Play the loser who acts like a winner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Okay.
I used to say, I know what you're thinking. Why did this guy go into comedy? It was funny. It got good laughs.
Well, it's funny because you looked funny.
Yes. And then I would change it. I flipped it upside down. I went, I know what you're thinking. Why did this guy go into comedy?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, I used to be a male model. I modeled socks on the radio. I used to be a male model. I modeled socks on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everything was a brag.
Right.
Okay, so getting to Stu Trivax and brevity, he said he had the same type of character. It's like a loser who acted like a ladies' man.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you know what I like in a woman? Me.
Yeah, I figured. But I could see that coming.
I already set it up with the 2-letter punchline, too. And I said
that's true. You did.
But it's like perfect.
Yeah,
Brevity.
yeah.
Love it.
Now, you mentioned Eddie Murphy was a competitor in this thing that you actually won. And I know you've worked with a lot of comics who are, today we call them like A-listers. They're multi-zillionaires.
Bastards.
So many of them.
Bastards.
So I'm curious, how do you handle that? You've had your successes, but so few people have had that kind of success.
This mega jealousy?
Well,
no, I'll tell you,
it is a fair question, and I wonder how that must be, because it's not as if you've been doing shabby.
No.
I mean, the accolades are there and the credits are there.
And I've made a living. Thank God. To make a living at this, and this is what I love to do, is a nice combo.
So you look at that as the reward in itself.
Well, it's not a bad place to be.
I agree.
I mean, I want a bigger. I'll get a little deeper in a second, but if I look at, is Larry David or Seinfeld $800 million? Are they $800 million better than I am? No, not at all. I was joking with somebody else recently. I said, if Larry won a lottery and he won $300 million, that would be like, oh, okay. You know, he wouldn't have to go crazy over that. It wouldn't be, what kind of
There'd be no jealousy.
Yeah, he wouldn't be.
Right? You wouldn't. No one would feel envy because it was sheer luck.
Relative to that. Yeah, anyway, but they're remarkably talented. I think there is an aspect to the business of right place, right time, right management does help. I was never great at that. Never great at that. And I think my core issue in life, which I'm owning even to this day in this last few days, is a feeling my power.
Explain that.
Feeling my power to say, hey, I can be as great as any one of these people. There's nobody I started with that are that much better than I, hundreds and hundreds of millions better than I am. You know, I mean,
Right.
God bless them. I'm happy for their success, but I could have that too.
So
You know, it's about owning my power, and I've recoiled from it. When you grow up the way I grew up, I don't think I had whatever ego I needed to seek out that success that way. I think like Leno, maybe there were more functional settings for people, other comics growing up. But I feel his hunger for success was enormous. He kind of owned his power, as much of it as he could possibly own. I don't like the guy. I think as a club comedian, he's brilliant. As a talk show host, he's despicable. I think as a person, he's pretty despicable.
well, that's a big thing to be saying.
Not really. It's my
Well, because he
opinion.
doesn't have a show anymore? I mean, I'm saying like from a power,
no,
like he is
I've
a...
said it before. I said it because I'll tell you, I love what we are, comedians. I love it. And to me, and I'll get back to owning power in a second.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of power in stand-up, remarkable amount. As much as the hug, there's a lot of power in that. But when you're in a position that Leno was in, he could have put on 2 comics a week. He was literally launched by doing mainly 1 million shows and then being every 6 weeks or
We're
whatever.
talking about Johnny Carson.
He was, but Leno was launched on Letterman too in the mid 80s.
Oh, okay. Right.
Something like that. Yeah, but he was launched by Letterman, ironically, and then they went up against each other, and Letterman lost the Tonight Show to him. But the fact that Jay couldn't replicate that for peers, not just me, but other peers, and you can't think of one person he really launched.
Did you ever, but here's a question I'm curious about. Did you ever pursue yourself as a stand-up,
On
Leno
that show?
himself, and say, did you ever actually go up to Jay? You knew him, right?
No, I didn't.
Didn't you know him?
Yeah, at times, yeah. I mean,
Did you ever go up to him and say, hey, man, I'd love to be on the show? How do I get on the show?
Yeah, I did. He said, "Oh, go through the process." Yeah,
Jack Cohn or someone or whoever the
broken
booker-
at one time. Yeah, it didn't. It just didn't happen.
I think Jack was the head writer.
Yeah. But Brogan booked
Jimmy.
the comics for a while.
Oh, did? Okay.
Yeah, and then it became kind of a committee thing. And anyway, a point is,
Yes.
So there's a guy he wanted to be the king, and he achieved that, and he owned his power. So I give him credit for that, for getting accessing that. But creatively, I think I'm remarkably creative. 1 million ideas. I just wrote something with somebody last week.
A bad check.
Pitch it out. Yeah.
Doesn't count.
It'd be bad if I had to write a check with somebody. So
Some people need a partner.
Need help. Yeah. Can you sign this? So
Well, let's
I
talk.
think it's about owning your power.
So how do you demonstrate that today? How are you going to exercise that? What's going to change if it's been lacking?
I've written probably about 4 books about health and fitness and diet and weight loss and really all the emotional side of it, which has been my struggle, my adult life.
Is it an addiction for you, food?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. Yeah, if
Have you ever
if I eat the wrong stuff, I get triggered.
Have you gone to like a 12-step group for that?
Yeah, I have. Thanks
Really?
for bringing my name in. I appreciate that.
I didn't say I've seen you at one. I've
Yeah.
never been at one, but I said, hold on, I didn't get, you're going for the joke there.
I actually
just
went
asked
to 12
you.
Steps Anonymous. That's how many meetings I was going to a week. Yeah. But nobody would sponsor me. I couldn't find anybody.
Really?
Yeah. I was just alone. That was it.
No one would sponsor you.
I'm joking.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, but the point is,
I could see it happening.
I think there's a big issue with food in this country and the diet mentality. Terrible.
Okay. Well, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a pin in that.
What-
I'm going to put a pin in that for just 1 second here.
Yes.
How are you going? You're a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
Okay.
How am I going to merge that with?
Yeah, because right now, suddenly the show has become very unfunny. So, how are you going to make
Well, you
weight
asked
loss?
me-
I know, but I'm not trying to be.
I'm not going to make.
How are you going to converge the two? When you say exercise your power, what does this mean? You're starting a whole new career around weight
it'll
loss?
be a sort of like a sister career. Is
Okay, so it's not about being funny. It's
It's about heart.
Okay.
It's about heart.
So this is something you've written 4 books. Are they? Where can people get them? Are they available?
No, I have to edit them and put them out.
Okay, so that's the power of getting them out
That's
there.
the power is owning my power and saying, hey, you deserve to get your voice and have it heard worldwide.
Okay,
Bingo. That's power.
but how are you exercising that with your stand-up?
I don't actually merge the two that much. I don't.
Well,
I don't see-
I'm not trying to be. I'm a little confused because I want to really stay really laser focused on what your message is. So you were saying that you admired Leno for the power he had in
for owning his power.
Right.
Yes, I admire that.
So and you said that's something you're going to be exercising more of.
yes,
And I'm
that's my core issue.
Okay.
Is owning that.
So what I'm curious about, and you might not have an answer right now because you might still be working on it.
How do I do that? Yeah.
How are you going to do that with your stand-up career? How are you? What?
Well,
actions-
stand-up will be almost secondary
Okay.
to my guru career.
So you would like to put that power more into something else rather than your stand-up.
Yeah, I mean, one washes the other. If I do good things as a stand-up, it's not going to hurt other
Right.
areas.
I didn't know
of
if
my life.
like you had some actual I'm working on certain things within your stand-up that would be an obvious demonstration of that power. But it sounds like your power is going to be demonstrated through the other thing,
I think so.
the diet type stuff.
Yes.
And that might bolster your stand-up in some way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I think like, you've done 90, you said you did over 90 TV appearances.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, that in itself is pretty incredible.
I would say, yeah, it's nice. I mean, you get, they don't, it's not 90 in a week and you go, oh my God, what a week that was. But over X amount of years, yeah, great.
Right.
For about 15 years or something.
I'm just a little concerned. I mean, are you going to, isn't that going to draw focus away from your stand-up if you're spending a lot of time with the weight loss stuff?
Well, actually, almost every morning I get up and I write. It's like at a certain point you go, hey, I've got to listen to this voice. It's popping out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm drawn to it. No pun intended, it feeds me. And I can't just live in my shell anymore. I've got to share this with the world. And basically how it ties in with stand-up is you've got to lighten up about lightening up. I used to be so hard on myself and so screwed up around food, and if I ate something, the wrong thing, and beating myself up all the time. 25 years worth of this. And then I realized, how do I tie this into my personality? So you got to lighten up about lightening up. Otherwise, if you're heavy about lightening up, eventually you stay heavy. You get heavy again.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we are. And basically, the whole concept of diets in our world is so not working. It's not black and white like drugs or alcohol or sex addiction or gambling or certain types of shopping for people and things like that. It's not black and white. It's got to find a beautiful gray, and you got to love yourself through it.
How much have you weighed at your heaviest?
I hated weighing myself.
I mean, 500 pounds?
No. Probably, 230 or something. And now,
and what are you now?
Probably 210 now.
So you've never been like obese? I mean, 230 is not.
It's a matter of being in shape and not in shape also. And it's really you could feel 1,000 pounds between your ears.
Mm-hmm.
You could be, what do you call an anorexic? It could be.
There's body dysform.
Yeah, I know. You could have the perfect weight. You could be at your goal weight and screwed up about food.
I want to look back now with these 90 TV appearances. I'm just curious. Ever bomb on TV?
Actually, I can't think of one time.
You can or no?
Can't.
No,
I can't.
Because usually you know your act so well, and you've been so kind of I forgot the word for it.
A monkey. You're a trained monkey.
It's like on automatic. Have you been depressed? I would say it's not depressed. Have you been when you were about to do your set? Do you ever blank out or?
Yeah, it did. My third Tonight Show, I inverted a word or two in a French routine, which you probably saw somewhere, maybe Reno when we worked Reno.
Yeah.
And I flubbed a word or two, but the audience didn't know it. But that moment was like a moment like on a TV movie where like it felt like an eternity, like in slow motion. Yes. In my head, I go, oh my God, I can't believe I did it 1,000 times. And here I am. I actually screwed something up and nobody knew it.
Were you nervous before the set?
Yeah. Before all the Tonight shows, I was pretty nervous, but I felt pretty good about what I was about to say, so you're pretty calm based on that. You know what works. But there's the two guys that open the curtain on the Tonight Show.
Uh-huh.
And I go, hey, it's the Executioners, and they laughed, they understood.
That's funny.
Yeah. And my third Tonight Show, I was supposed to do panel with Johnny, and he ran along with Michael Chang, the tennis player. And I was like, all of a sudden you're backstage and you're about to go on. And they go, no panel. So you got to deal with that.
Have you done that ever? Did you do panel with him?
I did panel with Letterman.
How many times did you do Carson?
3, and they repeated all 3. I did actually did kind of a ballsy thing on Letterman, on Carson. Here's a great little Carson story. You want to hear a Carson story?
Sure.
When I started, he was the goal for every comic. And everybody always asked you, did you do Johnny? You do Johnny? And I go, nah, I haven't done Johnny. You're Johnny's kind of comedian. I did 1 million comedy clubs, 8 shows a week around the country during the whole comedy boom. You're Johnny's kind of comedian. You do Johnny? You're Johnny's kind of comedian. Then I would audition for the Tonight Show, and Jim McCauley, the booker, he'd go, I don't think you're Johnny's kind of comedian. But I killed. I did great. And everybody always tells me, you're Johnny's kind of comedian. I don't think you're Johnny. And I did it like a dozen times. But meantime, I'm always working the road. You do Johnny? No. You're Johnny's kind of comedian. So finally, like a dozen auditions, and he finally goes, yeah, you got it. You did Tonight Show. And I did my chin material, which I just killed.
Yeah.
About having a weak chin and that talking about,
Actually.
Yeah. Like, let me give
we actually have that tape.
Oh, let me just tell you what happened.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So, for momentum's sake, I should finish this story.
Go for it,
sure. I killed. I did great. And Macaulay goes, you got to meet Johnny. Now it's everything's upside down and flipped, and I'm
You're
his
a hero.
Best friend and everything. And I make him look great, and I'm his hero, and you got to meet Johnny. So after the show, we're in a spot where he knows Johnny's going to walk, and I'm standing there with Macaulay. He goes, Johnny Carson, Steve Middleman, and Carson doesn't miss a beat, looks me in the eye, and goes, you are my kind of comedian. Isn't that nice payoff? Huh?
That is amazing.
After all that, you got to meet, you're not Johnny's kind of comedian. You're my kind of comedian. I always knew.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got to live it out. That was my dream. I did it a few times. They repeated them, which was great.
Does the nut in you start to go, why did they call me a fourth time? Like, do you go there?
Oh, well, he was kind of wrapping up his time.
Okay, it was towards the end of the run.
Also, what happened was 1 million comics were trying to vie. If they had, I don't know how many comics on per week or month, imagine how many people desperately trying to fill those spots.
How many minutes were you doing back then? Because
5, I think.
It's a decent amount of time. They don't give you that kind of time, it seems.
Now?
It doesn't seem 5. Like it. Is it still
I checked
lived?
the guys on Letterman.
You're still doing 5? Good.
So you have something on to play here?
You know what? Why don't we do that? Let's go ahead. This is Steve's bit around now, and then we're going to lead into the fact that your chin's changed since then. Let's hear this bit here that was a classic Steve Middleman bit.
Well, you may have noticed I have no chin. It's affected me my whole life. I grew a beard once. I looked like a guy with a beard who had no chin. Looked like a fur tongue. I flunked gym in high school. Teacher said, do 10 chin-ups. I said, with what? Even as a kid, learning how to play the violin, and stick in my mouth.
Tell me a little bit about you're smiling, and it's funny stuff. What's the memories? What are the memories when you hear that?
It was like being awash with laughs every time I did that routine. Mm-hmm. People got it.
So I looked at the video, and you guys listening, if you want to Google or YouTube Steve, just go to Steve Middleman, Mittleman.
There's about a dozen tapes on
but
there.
This
but that's
particular
the
one
big laugh off.
Is the big laugh? Is it LAFF?
Yeah.
That's so much funnier than the normal spelling. So you look at this thing, and Steve, he looks like, you know how Woody Allen looked weird and funny? Just you look at him and you laugh and smile. That's kind of how Steve looked. Like you had this funky eye that you can't really tell, but, was there. And then you had
strabismus, lazy eye.
Okay, lazy.
If I talk to the audience, right, I'd ask them a question, they would answer me over here. Amazing.
And you had this no chin, and it was like you had a funny, odd kind of charactery look.
That's right. Yeah, I grew it.
Like this guy Joe Seidel.
He
was known
Patrick
for
Kelly, yeah.
Well, Joe I think he's from Chicago, but he was known for casting oddball-looking people.
Yeah, and I was perfect for a long time.
And that's why you were booking probably a lot, because you had that fun character-y thing. You don't forget the commercial.
That's correct.
So why did you get rid of that?
No, I outgrew it. Before having an extreme makeover on ABC, I already had outgrown it.
What do you mean by outgrowing? You still had the lazy eye and you still had no chin. What did you outgrow?
You just internally, the feeling about myself, I was tired of doing all the self-deprecating stuff.
It was hurting your own self-esteem?
No. You just don't want to be tired of what you're doing up there.
Even if it's working, you're winning competitions.
Well, we're talking 1980 and now 2004.
So did you feel your career had kind of plateaued and
I would say so, yeah.
kind of ridden that, put that in the ground kind of?
Yeah, but I could still, if I could do it, if I set it up right and gave it a context, like, hey, I had a makeover on TV and I had a really weak chin. How weak? It took me 3 to 4 hours to change a pillowcase. That was weak. So I could still do it if I like. Once in a blue moon, I do it.
Right, okay.
Because, but I can't do a lot of other stuff.
Right, so you ended up going on Extreme Makeover.
Yes, on ABC.
And they offered to redo your whole face.
Yeah.
How's that feel? Like you're perfect.
Something funny, when everything was over, my son, they let him come backstage before I was kind of introduced to the world.
And you have such a good-looking son.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, now I look like his real dad. Anyway, so he comes backstage, and he's 9 years ago. I guess he was like 8 years old. And, we hugged, and he goes, nothing's really changed except your face. So anyway, I had like I don't know, $100,000 worth of surgeries and everything. Okay, facelift, chin, nose, as I like to say, trim from orthodox to conservative. Okay, so I do the show. The next morning, I'm flying out to do a corporate gig. Okay, I'm on the plane. Everybody's recognized me. Like 20 people. The flight attendant go, "Oh, saw you on the show last night. Congratulations, good for you." Walking down the aisle, congrats. Take my seat. Congrats. Okay, we take off. The flight attendant comes for a drink order. She goes, "Oh, hey, congratulations, good for you." The woman next to me, she knows nothing. And she puts down her magazine. She goes, "Hey, what's all this congratulations about?" I said, "Well, I just got an extreme makeover." And I swear to you, she looks me up and down and goes, "Fabulous. When do you start?" Isn't that classic? I'm telling you,
great.
True, very true.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I want to imagine for a moment, you've got your 20-some-year-old Steve is in the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to cry.
And now, some years have passed. You've had some incredible highs. I assume you've had some lows.
Mm-hmm.
You're still in mid-stride. I mean, it's not like, there's still plenty to go and you're constantly out there on the road and you're constantly working. Mm-hmm. It's not as if the career's over. It's still moving strong.
Sure.
What do you tell the 20-year-old or 23-year-old or that you've learned as who you are today that you wish you knew then?
Oh, power. Go for it. You're just as valid as all your buddies, all your peers. Ask for yourself. Don't deny yourself.
But it didn't appear you were. You were on Carson.
I did.
Were on how?
I was like this polite, reserved, insecure ex-Canadian. Like they're supposed to be polite. But I was born in Montreal. That's why I said that.
Oh, okay.
But raised in New York.
Do you feel that you let other comics walk all over you?
No. I'm just asking, for being kind of relentless about, I need great managers. I need to get my tapes out. I need to be seen.
Are you doing that now?
No. No. I don't have that hunger. Like
you're a different stage.
I do corporate gigs and I make a living and I do some Jewish gigs and I do private parties like a 50th birthday or a 40th wedding anniversary. I do a lot of those kind of things. I like it. I like it a lot. I do a roast once in a while. I do auctions now and then.
You don't care about being on Fallon or
I'd like
or Kimmel or
I'd like to. I'd like to at my books. I'd like to be the comedian who's the weight loss guru. That'd be fine. Merge the two.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I've written volumes and volumes on exactly, becoming saner about this stuff.
Well,
I'm not perfect by any means.
It's really interesting because I'm imagining like if I, with perhaps my own character defects and as they say, there's a Yiddish word, mishigas, that if I had this peer group back then, and then so many of them had achieved what some would consider mega success just by the dollars.
Yes.
And while, you've had many successes, and it's just like, I don't know how I would not have some kind of, I don't know, like how, like
jealousy.
And resent, but you are so accept and you have so much gratitude. It's a great thing. And I like that. And I try to have gratitude. And I generally do. I just, it's really, there's a serenity about you that's really nice.
Well, listen, I auditioned for America's Got Talent a few weeks ago. I'd like to do that show. I'd like to win that show. I'd move to Vegas.
You could win that.
I could win that. Easily, I feel I could win that. And, would I like the acclaim? Would I like people to go, hey, yeah, you are great, pat me on the head, etc.? Yeah, it would be nice. Could it be a vehicle for also launching my weight loss cause? That would be great. So, yeah, would I like it? Yeah, I would. But it's gravy. I've got to know who I am in the world. I love my son. I got a girlfriend I love. I got friends I love. I'm loved. And everything else is gravy. It's fun. It's got to be fun. It's a fun ride. We're here. We're so grateful. Look at humanity and the history of humanity and where we live and how much of an easier life we've had versus a lot of what the history that we know in the world. We're very, very fortunate.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really
I have some perspective, I think. So, yeah.
And I'm sure that helps.
Yeah. And also, you could tell by the way I talk, if I listen to me talk, I'd go, boy, that guy does a lot of thinking. But, I think about the world we're in, and I have perspective, and I see the irony in things. There's irony in I didn't make this mega thing. It's never too late, I think. But, again, I know who I am also. I can't get caught up in status exactly where I'm at. What I like, money equates options. Options equate freedom. So money equates freedom. And that's a nice thing to have. Do I have as much money as I'd like? Do I have as much freedom? I have an awful lot of freedom because I get to do what I want to do. And I have a lot of free time. So that's all nice. And again, I'm grateful. That's all. What else can I add to that?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I think it's really...
and I'm glad to be here.
I'm just thrilled that we're friends.
Yeah, me too. I'm so happy to see you today. Really.
Yeah, me too. I just was really excited to have, that when you said you could do the show, and we had dinner before this, which was fantastic. And if people want to find out your schedule, like as far as where you'll be performing, or if they want to hire you, how do they find you?
Steve Middleman at AOL.com, MITTLEMAN at AOL.com. SteveMiddleman.com is my, MITT again. And Steve Middleman on YouTube. You'll see a dozen tapes, corporate gigs, private parties, Jewish gigs,
Christian gigs,
some acting gigs. Yeah, actually,
Buddhist
I did
gigs.
a church recently for 480, some church in San Jose. It was Valentine's Day show. Talk about a clean gig. Having
listen,
to be clean.
We are all out of time, Steve. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And thank all of you for listening. And please subscribe to iTunes, the show, if you haven't already.
And I want to thank all the callers for calling in.
Yes,
today.
they were quick, brief,
amazing,
fast. No, we didn't take calls today. There's just too much to talk about, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank all of you again. And we'll see you next time right here on Vic Cohen's It's a Fair Question. I'm Vic Cohen, and it's a fair question. It's a fair question. It's a fair question. I'm Vic Cohen, and it's a fair question. It's a fair question. I'm Vic Cohen, and it's a fair question.